Good to be with you all. Oh, I gotta use this. My food preparation is complete because I eat whatever Dave doesn't like. And so he's been just giving me all this free food because I'll eat anything. But again, it's good to be with you. And I really, we went back and forth on the schedule who was going to go first because I thought water would go before food. But then I thought about it. I said, if we're going to go into a difficult situation, whether it's a raw or whatever, definitely want Southern Prepper 1 leading the way. So appreciate him. We've been working together on a lot of different things, a lot of different projects. And I want to say, I guess, a special thank you to Such for organizing this. I think we need to give him a hand. And some of you know me as Engineer 775. My name is Scott. Some of you don't know me at all, and you'll get to know me on a couple of talks that I have today. And I've been a prepper for about 16 years, I guess. Shortly after I became a Christian, as was mentioned, I was an engineer for 10 years, and then I became a born-again Christian, so I give all the credit for everything in my life to, I like that sign up there, to Jesus Christ. And so, anyway, I'm not, as a prepper, when it comes to prepping, I tell a lot of people about prepping. Some listen, some don't. I tell a lot of people about Jesus. Some listen, some don't. So, but the most important thing I tell people, you need to be prepped for eternity. You can be prepped, you can have the best setups and be prepped here, but does that really matter in the big picture? So I'm a prepper spiritually and I prep physically, and I just wanted to share that with you. And you have that same battle that I have, trying to get people on board. And maybe, even trying to get, as a husband, trying to get your wife on board. I get a lot of PMs like, how is your wife on board with all the crazy stuff you're doing? And she is. I'm very thankful that my wife is on board. Without her, I wouldn't have accomplished what I've accomplished. And so I think she's more paranoid than I am. She's not in here, I can say that. But so we've made a good team on that. But I know it's a struggle. Just keep praying. Keep, loving your wives, and they'll come along, your family. You need them on board. And okay, I guess enough preaching, we'll get on to water. My prepping philosophy, whether it's water, energy, food, whatever, is that simple is good, reliable is better, but redundancies are peace of mind. What do I mean by that? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Everybody, that KISS principle, keep it simple, sweetie. No, I'll say stupid. I did. But anyway, keep it simple is good, but reliable things are great. But if you have backups, redundancies, I'm going to talk a lot about that. Have multiple ways of doing everything. Food, water, energy, hygiene. Just have multiple ways. Be thinking of them. You got to start small, as David said, but you need to think about multiple ways. I'm going to see if I say I'm a prepper. I came here and I couldn't get PowerPoint working. I didn't bring my laptop. I'm like, wow, I wasn't prepped today. So I'm hoping that I have a PowerPoint presentation for you. And I had some slides. We're getting there. All right. I'll share some quotes from time to time on this. Is it working? It's working. Okay. I like this one. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And for me, and like a lot of you folks, failure is not an option. And so I know you're working really hard. We're all working hard to prepare. I look at my wife, I look at my children, I look at those in our church, I look at those in our neighborhood, and this isn't about me and all that I can hoard for myself. How many people can I help? As David mentioned, a life raft, building lifeboats for other people. That's what I feel called to do. That's what I feel led to do, is do this, share with as many people, explain, teach, and then just be a messenger. The Bible talks about a watchman. A watchman is useless if he sees an event coming and he doesn't share it with others. That he is really not a watchman. He is of no use. So I'm here to be one of those watchmen, just to share what I see coming, and then some ways to help and prepare for that. Okay. Water. We'll get on to water. To me, water is a number one resource issue in the world. It's not oil and peak oil and what we talk about. There are many alternatives to oil. There's many alternatives to fuel, but there's none that I know of, no alternative to water. And so water is critical, not only for sustaining life, but critical for anything you want to do, for gardening, for hygiene, medical, livestock, you need to really think about how much water do you use on a daily basis? Do you really know? Are you getting those numbers down? Because that's what you need to prepare for. That's at a minimum. Okay, so for me, you have your non-hybrid seeds in a can, but not having water, one crop failure, you're done. So not having water for those vegetables is not an option. Okay, we're going to talk about some sources. This is kind of what I want to cover. I hopefully have enough time. Sources of water, how to distribute that water, how to store the water, filtration, purification. I won't talk too much about that, and then usage again, knowing how much water you actually need. Some sources of water, and what I'm going to share, because I live on a little farm, that a lot of what I'm going to share with you today, these are things that I have done, I have tested over the last 15 years. These are things that I know that work. I've made a lot of mistakes because I've tried a lot of different crazy things when it comes to water. And so what I want to share with you is what I know works, but I also, even though I know it works, I also have 2 to 3 backups, redundancies in case one of the systems fails. Technology fails. And when I'm looking at, if I'm building a retreat and I'm going to try to take care of 30 to 40 people, and they're all looking at me, hey, why isn't your gizmo working today? I don't think I'll be able to handle that. That's too stressful for me. So anyway, some sources. Obviously, streams and rivers are sources of water, and this is going to be very simple. Wells, I'm going to get into these later, especially the wells. I want to give you some ideas. Maybe you never heard of a driven point. There are many ways to get water. We're so spoiled, we're so used to municipal water systems, pressurized water, and so just some ideas. Springs, a lot of people don't realize that you can develop a spring, whether it's a spring coming off of a side hill or a seepage area or an artesian well. There are so many ways to take the water sources that are around us that haven't been done. Farmers used to do this, and so there's ways to do it. And later on you can ask me questions on I could spend all day on what is that? Developing how do we develop a spring? And this is one that I have on my property. I've had it for about 15 years. And it serves, I can get all the water that we need for everything out of one spring. Okay. Lakes and ponds, and was mentioned rain, harvesting rain catchments, and there's many ways to get water. Okay, wells. Let me ask you a question. Do you have a well? And you might not have a well. And if you don't, I want to start with that. If you don't have a well, do you know that you can drill your own? And I know there's people that have traveled a long way, and that's awesome. I've talked to several people from Ohio, some from Florida. But all I know, what I can share with you now is what I've learned in South Carolina. Okay, because every time I call the DHEC, I would get a different answer on it. A different day of the week, I get a different answer on this. So I actually had the representative for private wells come to my house, and we went through every gory detail of the permitting process and the regulations, the technical regulations, everything. So I just want to tell you, it's one of the things I was excited to come here to say, you can legally drill your own well in your own backyard. And that's a great thing to have. And what's neat about that is you can put it where you want. You can put it inside a greenhouse, you can put it wherever you want, put it someplace convenient. So how in the world do you drill your own well? Well, we're going to drill a hole right in the stage here, Such, so no, we're not going to do that. This is just an example. This is an auger. Some of you have seen my channel and have seen the different wells that I've done. I've drilled 5 wells with this hand augering kit. You can get it you can get this kit from Hydro Missions. Is Steve here? Steve, just raise your hand. Steve's back there in the corner. He doesn't feel it. He just got back from Panama last night really late, and he was successful in drilling another well. They go around the world and they drill wells with this hand augering kit. Basically drills a 5.5-inch hole. You can case it. And so I just wanted you to know you can drill your own wells. Okay, so assuming, there's a lot of ways, that's not the only way. People say, you can't do that. The guy from DHEC said, that's impossible. And that, you can't do that. And so he said, I gotta come see it. So that got to spark his interest because I said, well, come see it. And I have one working. So anyway, you can drill your own well. There are many ways to do it. And that's just one way, and that's a way that I know that works. Most of the average water depth in South Carolina is 40 to 50 feet for a groundwater well. So you can drill 100 feet with that kit. It's a lot of work, but that's where you recruit some people to turn that T handle and just take some time. When we drilled that church, it took us 35 minutes and we hit water. We hit water at 12 feet. sometimes you gotta, it'll take all day or maybe longer to do that. So, okay. And one of the ways to find out, there's a lot of bored wells around, maybe in your neighborhood, county. Just look in an old bored well and you'll see where the water depth is. And it'll give you an idea of how deep you're going to have to drill in your neighborhood. And again, it varies. I've drilled several where I've just hit rock and I just pick up and move, and until I find where I can sneak down through the rock and hit water. And it's exciting to be able to do that. Because when the grid goes down, okay, if you've drilled your well or you already have a well, if the grid goes down, you don't have your submersible's not working, what are you going to do? The simplest thing. Oh yeah, I forgot. I do have the permitting. These are basically the permits for South Carolina and the record of the well. We have all the regulations. You can get this because they said you couldn't do this, you couldn't do it, you can't do it. You can drill your own well and you can do it legally. It costs $50 for an irrigation well. It's a great thing to have as a backup for your water. And yes, you can drill your own well. And HydroMissions, again, you can go to hydromissions.com if you're interested in buying one. They can be expensive for one person, but we have networked, and we went in on this one drill rig. There's 5 or 6 of us that have just shared the cost of this, and so we go around to each other's homes, and so everybody's getting a well. So it's kind of a way to minister to one another. And okay, where are we drilling a well this week? Or where will we drilling a well next month? So it's a lot of fun. Okay, now that you have a well, how do you get water out of the well? And a lot of people have nice wells, drilled wells, they don't know how to get water out of it. What's the easiest way to get water out of a well? It's the old bucket down the hole trick. Just put a baler bucket. You can buy these baler buckets, some are, or just make one. You can simply make a bucket, and it's basically a cylinder, whether it's PVC or metal with a check valve on the bottom, open on the top, and you determine how much you want to lift up, whether you want to do a gallon or 10 gallons, pulling up on a pulley or a rope, and you just let the thing down into the water. It fills up, you pull it up, and you have your water. So I recommend everybody that has a well, just build a baler bucket. Whether you have a pump or multiple pumps, it's a very simple thing that you can build for, say, $30 or less, and that way you can guarantee to get water for your family. Okay, a backup well pump. I'm going to drive you. No, I won't. I told my wife, and I told Dave he's welcome to shoot me if I go too long on this subject. Well pumps, anything to do with water. Water fascinates me. It drives my wife crazy. I probably got over a mile of pipes at my property. I run water everywhere, distribute water for cows and chickens and for our home and for irrigation. And so I'm always trenching, and it's just insane. But I've learned a lot by just doing it. Well pumps. There are a plethora of well pumps out there, and hand pumps, pitcher pumps. We've got some, somebody came in and said, "Oh, I grew up on a farm and had one of these, and they're great." And you can go to Amazon and still buy the gasket kits for these. You pick one up for free or $5. Gasket kit costs $8, and you're pumping water. Now that is only good to about 30 feet. Okay, you can only suck water up 1 atmosphere. That's roughly 33 to 34 feet. So you just prime that pump, and that pump will pump 5 gallons a minute. It's fantastic, and that's a good solution for the hand-dug wells or shallow wells or bored wells. Pitcher pumps. You see the picture. There's got a lot of different styles of pumps. There's some pumps that are hard to get. They're in Africa and India, in third world countries. And you can make your own. I've made several different types of pumps. That's what I like to do. So you don't have to buy a pump. But in my search for a pump, I brought one up here. This pump, you can take a look at it later. I'll put it out at our table out in the hall. I know you probably can't see it. It's a pump that does it all. If you want a pump, you can install this pump here. It's just called a simple pump. And it's a pump that you can run by hand. It's a pump that you can put a 12-volt motor on. It's a pump that you can run with a battery, run your four-wheeler down there, or just have a battery. And you can pressurize the water in your house. So basically you can install one of these alongside, right over top of your submersible pump, and you can turn your submersible off, and this will service your house. You just size the right size battery, and you can put a solar panel with it. So for a pump that does it all, that is mechanical, that uses 12-volt battery as a source to pump, or uses solar, it does it all. So, what's that? 350 feet. Great question. And that's what's amazing about it. It covers the depth. It will make the pressure. It will handle the freezing. It's got a weep hole in it. In my research of all the different styles of hand pumps, of course you're going to pay a little bit more for it, but it will do it all. It'll handle, and you can run off of this. These things run. I've seen several of these run 365 days out of the year up in Canada for sampling water. So they're real neat. That's why they call it Simple Pump. But if you've got any questions about that, I don't want to spend too much time on that. But there are other ways. If you have a tractor, a roller pump on a PTO works great. I've used them. You can pump 100, 200 feet in the air with a PTO 8-roller pump. Just mount. They're $120, $130. Mount on the back of a tractor, and you can pump water wherever you need to. You can fill a 2,000-gallon tank in about 40 minutes. Just using a PTO roller pump. There's pumps like DC pumps are expensive, but they are also, you can get jet pumps, shallow well pumps, a river pump. Some of you have asked me about ram pumps. I just want to say something about a river pump first. I know I have a picture of one. Some of you live next to a big river, and the water's moving slow, but she's moving a lot of water. The river pump's a great way to put that in the river or a low head situation, and you can pump 4,000 gallons of water a day to an elevation of 80 feet. Another neat thing I will share, you can pump clean water if there's a clean water source, a spring. You can use the energy from a creek or a river or a pond to actually drive the ram to run and pump spring water. And that ram is modified. I've machined that to actually pump spring water. Spring water didn't have enough energy to run the ram, but the pond that I have does. And so you can actually pump clean water with dirty water. They will not mix. And so that's, oh boy, I'm getting in. Let's move on to the ram, because I definitely could spend a lot of time. Solar pumping. When it comes to solar is fantastic for two things. Now, I'm probably going to get some arguments with people on this one, but solar is great for pumping water, and solar is great for charging batteries. For making power, unless you're very wealthy, it's just not cost effective. There's only one customer in our rural co-op out of 63,000 that I know of that has an off-grid home, but that's designed from the ground up. Because photovoltaic is very, very, still hasn't come down to where most people can't even begin to think about it. But pumping water, it's fantastic. I've been doing this for 7 years. I pump about 12,000 gallons of water a week on our farm. Why do I do that? I have no idea. I just do it because it's fun. To me, it's fun. And it drives everybody else crazy. But in a difficult situation, I want to have water, and I want to have good water. So I move a lot of water. Moving water is living water. Water that sits in tanks and sits around, hangs out, is stagnant water, just growing algae as soon as it sits there. So keep your water moving. That's another thing. So I've been pumping water with a solar well pump for 7 years. Moves about 2,000 gallons a day, and or a little bit less. And I pump out of that spring I showed you before. There are all types of manufacturers. Grundfos, probably the top. Lorentz, German pump manufacturers do a great job. And but there's floating solar well pumps. But it's never let me down. I mean, for 7 years, the only time I had a pipe freeze, that was my mistake. That pump, I pump to a tank and distribute to 9 different places on my property, and that solar pump does that. And which reminds me, when you're planning your water systems, if you do, we're used to 30 to 40 to 50 psi at the tap. To get that at your house, what do you have to do? Well, you have to build a tower, or you've got to have an elevation or a hill, and for every foot it's 2.31 psi. So if you want 30 psi at your tap, you better have a 70-foot water tower, some way to have that tank 70 foot above your home. So in planning, make sure that you factor that in. There's a guy, I don't know if he made it here, but I won't say it. He makes an awesome water. I still covet his water tower. He has a beautiful water tower. He pumps water to it with solar, about 1,600 gallons. He's got the tap. He's got the pressure at the tap. So think about that. And there's many ways to do that. All right, how am I doing at the time? Nobody shot me yet. All right. I keep saying that because Dave definitely threatened to shoot me if I went too far. Okay, so pumping with solar is great. You don't have to put it in a well. You can put it in a spring. You can put it in a container of water, and it works good. But I do recommend, this is something that I see a lot of people, when they do this, if you're working together to build a retreat in a rural location, make sure you put a return line in. I know that's kind of boring, but what I do is I pump to the tank and let it overflow and return back, just to keep that water moving. Every person that I've done a consult for or something on a farm, they always pump to these big old water tanks. You go back to their farm and it's just these green ponds out there in pasture. Put a return line, spend the extra money to put a return line in, keep your water moving. They're like, I'm going to put a float switch. I'm just telling you, for 7 years I've not shut the pump off. I do not have a float switch because the sun goes down and that shuts the pump off. And then it comes back on and I let it pump. And you can turn your panel away if you don't want it pumping so much. You can adjust that. So I just encourage you, if you venture down this road with your water projects. Okay. Storing water. You're saying, I don't live on a farm, I don't do these things, I don't even know what you're talking about. You need to have some water. And the easiest way is just to buy bottled water and put it back. And you don't have to worry about storing, you don't have to worry about sanitizing. And again, but if you do have your own water, I think I'm on distribution and storage. If you do store your own water, the 2-liter plastic bottles are great. A lot of people, what people overlook is the cap. They always overlook the sanitation of the cap. And I don't want to get into methods of how to sanitize necessarily. I think there's other people covering that. But don't use containers that had like milk protein in them. And you definitely want to use the high density polyurethane, HDPE. I knew I'd forget that, but the high-density polyethylene tanks that are marked on all plastic containers, you definitely want to use those for your potable water. We'll talk a little bit about filtration and treatment, and again, the simplest thing is to boil your water. If you want to, because whether you use a river, a pond, a stream, a spring, a well that you might have not tested, and that's another thing. If you do a well, you should have your water tested, and also tested for heavy metals. Uranium and things like that. I was talking to a guy yesterday about that. You can get your water tested, and even for like uranium, you can get it tested for $30 to $40. When it comes to filtration or treatment of your water, boil 1 minute and you're done. It's probably the simplest way. The other thing is to use rainwater, which is typically safe. There are iodine tablets, which typically are 2 tablets per quart. And there are so many. Charcoal filters, sediment filters, KDF filters, I made a list. Water, you can distill, reverse osmosis. Most of you folks know a lot of these. The ultraviolet, magnetic water filters, and again, then there are a lot of the filters you can purchase. The Berkeys, which most of you realize are hard to get now because of what's going on in Japan, and hard to get, period. The Catadines are comparable, and whether they're the ones that sit on a countertop or you have backpack, bug-out bag size filters. Another thing I'd like to share with you, because boiling water, sometimes the taste is not good, the water, to look at water pasteurization. You only really have to heat any water source to 165 degrees. Keep it there, I say 30 seconds, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, and you have a water that is a good quality, and then less to cool down, and doesn't taste as bad. So look at pasteurization, and I think I do have, there's some indicators out there that are helpful. One is it's called a SPADE, solar pasteurization detector, and you can get those also from Hydro Missions. These are kind of you put in a water bottle. You remember when David was talking about putting the water bottle out in the sun? We actually screw this into that water bottle, and the plastic, the industrial wax inside, will actually melt when it reaches the proper temperature. When that at 165 degrees, it'll melt. And when it melts, and I think that one, some of them change color, but it melts. It's basically reusable. It'll melt and move down, and then you just flip it over for your next bottle. But once it reaches that temperature, that wax melts right at that temperature of pasteurization. And the Wafi is another one that does the same, where the wax melts, and as soon as that happens, 15 to 30 seconds, and the water is good. A good old chlorine is good, and you can go find a chlorine chart, but typically 2 drops per quart, and then you can figure out from there depending on your size of container. 1 gallon of bleach, and do not get the slippery bleach or the scented bleach, regular old household bleach. 1 gallon will treat 3,800 to roughly 3,800 gallons of water, so it's a good thing to have on hand. What time am I over, Don? Don't say now. Oh, okay, I'm good. I'm almost done. Okay, just and usage. I'll go back to usage. we just think about drinking water all the time, but there's in a raw situation, difficult situation, I plan on doing a lot of farming, a lot of gardening, a lot of digging, a lot of working, and so you need a lot of water. And my wife reminds me, what about the hygiene aspects, the medical aspects, water for our animals, the cows, we're like, okay, we need 40 gallons per animal per head a day. And just when you do your preps, make sure that you figured out your water usage. And again, it's not just for you, it's for others that come. If you have nothing else, have water prepared as a charity for people that will come. You get it, I get it. Because people know what I do, they say, everybody's coming to my house. No, you're not coming to my house. I mean, if you come to my house, I won't be at the gate. Let me put it that way, because they won't let me be at the gate. There's going to be somebody else that doesn't know you and doesn't care about you. It's a joke. It's a joke. But because I'm going to have a hard time. And charity is another issue that you see. No, it's not on the schedule because it's the hardest thing to talk about. It's the hardest thing to know what to do. We don't know what's going to happen. But and I look at my children. I'm preparing for them and preparing for others. But if other children come to my door and need food, then what? And how can I do that? You start doing the calculations. How long do your food supplies last? How long does your water last? And that's why this is great. This is fantastic. Network, get as many life rafts built as possible for difficult times and help as many people as possible. And so I'm not going to touch that charity issue more than what I just did. Some people say, great, more protein, bring it on. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Now that's one extreme. That's one extreme. I'm not there. But I'm excited to be used by the Lord and to help as many people as possible. But the most important thing in preparation is, I got the subject of water. Jesus Christ, that sign right above me, is the living water. That's the most important thing. Are you prepped for eternity? Then enjoy your preparation. If you're motivated by fear, that is not from God. That is from man. If you're being motivated by fear in any way, okay? He has not given us a spirit of fear. I know there's a lot of Christians here, and a lot of you know that. So, again, if you have questions, if you're looking for a drill rig or whatever, talk to Steve at Hydro Missions. He's in the back. And the indicators for pasteurization. If you have questions about pumps, rams, how to store water, how to distribute water. Again, folks, simple is great. Reliability to me is better. This is reliable. Proven. These old things are reliable. Get reliable things. But redundancy beats it all. Because a system's going to fail. It's going to fail. They fail on me all the time. But I got 2 or 3 other that I go, whew. I'm not going to have to look at my children. I'm not going to have to look at my wife and say, we have no water because the pump broke. And I can't get parts. I can't get to the machine shop today to make these parts, whatever. So redundancy. I'm going to keep saying that because that's what I feel led to say. And I've got this, so cool. All right, I guess that's it on the water talk. I'm going to stop 5 minutes early. That's amazing. It's a miracle. All right. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about water today.